Hello and most welcome to 1947 of the series. We will now continue with a tale of two problems. Wittgenstein's discussion of aspect perception by Severin Schroeder. And we will continue where we left off. Page 354. And we will begin just promptly at 355. Last time we mentioned that in order to language to have significance, and this is the reason why Wittgenstein was so keenly into aspects, the power of language to tell something is dependent on the ability to be different, to be ambiguous. The very oscillation of language, of meaning, of ambiguities is the driving force in language. Without it, we cannot have meaning. And of course, that puts a spell on monosemic, and the idea of monoclare, one singular meaning. One singular aspect seeing is put in into clear question. The monosemic tendency in itself is an impossibility in the oscillation of language. And I'd say that the idea of a monosemic status is close to the black box, and it makes understanding quite difficult, almost impossible. Or unbearably hard anyway, to say the least. We need the variance, the change of things. And I will now continue to read at page 355, if I may. This interpretation may be strengthened further by the following. It is no coincidence that Wittgenstein begins the discussion of aspect perception in his 1949 selection of remarks, PPF, with a case of seeing likeness. Because all the other examples can be regarded as variations on this theme, Aspect perception in general involves noticing a similarity. A similarity. Huh? Similarity. In all those cases, one can say that one experiences a comparison. A comparison. An object is seen as a variation or derivation or copy of one another. When I see something as X, I am aware of a similarity between it and X. Be it a glass cube, the head of a rabbit, or a galloping horse. Galloping horse. But then it can be argued that virtually all seeing is or involves seeing resemblances. Resemblances. When I see a tree, for example, and realize that it is a tree, I see its resemblance with other trees. Other trees. 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 In general, seeing that something is of a certain kind involves seeing its likeness in relevant respects with other familiar objects, objects of that kind. Of that kind. And even when looking at an arrangements of shapes and colors, I cannot make out what it is or represents. I will at least be able to identify certain shapes and colors, which again means seeing it in what way they are like other shapes and colors. Colors, colors, echoes. I've seen before. Listen now. To the extent to which to see is a verb of epistemic success, every seeing involves identification of kinds of objects or appearances. Which means seeing them as similar to others of that kind. It is true that Wittgenstein mentions the inappropriateness of saying, now I see it as in cases of ordinary perception. For example, as long as I haven't realized the ambiguity of the duck rabbit drawing, but simply see it as the drawing of a duck's head, the seeing as locution would make as little sense for me as to say at the sight of a knife and fork, now I see this as a knife and fork. Now I imagine that rings a bell for you. Knife and fork, cutlery. Fork. Nevertheless, someone else could correctly say of me, he sees the picture as a duck. He sees the picture as a duck. Similarly, although normally with a conventional picture or photograph, there is no question of seeing it as something, and so the expression is out of place, out of place, out of place. The question can be raised when, by way of contrast, one considers anomalous attitudes towards a picture. A picture, a picture, a picture. Thus, Wittgenstein imagines people who would be repelled by a small black and white photographs and would perhaps be unable to see human faces in them. In them. In them. By contrast with such people, we can then meaningfully say that we view a portrait as a human being. As a human being. Human being. Being. However, there's a considerable number of passages in Wittgenstein that appear to contradict Mulhall's interpretation and Strawson's claim. Not that Wittgenstein would have denied the ubiquity of aspect perception as a continuous dispositional attitude. It is only that there are many parts of the discussion where that is clearly not his main interest. Main interest. Main interest. Main. Main. The contrast between two different concepts of seeing as, one dispositional, one episodic, is brought out in the following remark. I say, we view a portrait as a human being. When do we do so? And for how long? Always, if we see it at all, and do not say, see it as something else. Something else. I might go along with this and thereby determine the concept of viewing a picture. The question is whether yet another concept related to this one also becomes important to us, that namely of seeing as, which occurs only while I am actually concentrating myself with the picture as the object represented, echo, echo. Represent. The answer to this question is clearly yes, yes. The concept of an ephemeral experience of seeing as opposed to a general attitude plays a prominent role in Wittgenstein's thoughts. The phenomenon we are talking about is the lighting up of an aspect. Lighting up of an aspect. Lighting up, yes. Lighting up. Of aspect perception in this episodic sense, Wittgenstein says that it is essentially an unstable state. Unstable state. Indeed. Indeed, yes. Only in the change of aspect does one become conscious of an aspect. And it is this sudden experience of change, Wittgenstein says, that he is interested in. Interested in. Interested in. Interested in. The experience of aspect perception is like the experience of recognition, which also does not last all the time. I know who somebody is. ears, Wittgenstein draws this analogy with recognition in a lecture. Do I always see a thing as something? Although only puzzle pictures bring this out. Bring this out. Bring this out. Suppose I show it to a child. The child says, it's a duck. And then suddenly, oh, it's a rabbit. So he recognizes it as a rabbit. This is an experience of recognition. So if you see me in the street and say, ah, Wittgenstein, Wittgenstein, but you haven't an experience of recognition all the time. The experience only comes at the moment of change from duck to rabbit and back. In between, the aspect is, as it were, dispositional. Geach, couldn't I say at any time how I see it, not just when it changes? Wittgenstein, only if you are concentrating on it. Thus, although Wittgenstein is prepared to speak of continuous aspect perception, when using the term in a dispositional sense, in other passages, using the term in an episodic sense, as denoting a particular experience, he denies the ubiquity of aspect perception. Perhaps Strawson, the feature that interested Wittgenstein in aspect change is not present in perception in general. In general, aspect perception is concept laden. seeing something as an X presupposes mastery of the concept of an X. For example, to see a row of 6 equidistant dots as 2 groups of 3 dots requires familiarity with the concept of a group of things belonging together. Belonging together. To belong in the community, in the Navy. Da, da, dee, da, da, da. And only someone who has mastered the psychological concept of happiness can see a circle with 2 dots and 4 curved lines in it as a happy face. Happy face. Happy face. Happy. Thus, a logical condition of once having an experience of aspect perception is that one has mastered a certain technique. This is something that struck Wittgenstein as paradoxical. Paradoxical. But how odd for this to be the logical condition of someone having such and such an experience. After all, you do not say that one only has toothache if one is capable of doing such and such and such and such. Here again, it is very clear that Mulhall, Wittgenstein is concerned with the concept of momentary experience of seeing as, for the observation that mastery of a technique should manifest itself dispositionally in and be presupposed by a certain attitude towards a picture is not the same way puzzling like a puzzle from Radeberger, puzzling, puzzles and puzzling. In short, Wittgenstein appears to shift between 2 different accounts of aspect perception and Mulholland's interpretation may well fit one account, but not the other one. Other one. The fact is, I think that Wittgenstein occupied himself with two connected but distinct conceptual problems in this area and was not always careful to keep them separate, moving from one to the other and back again. The two problems are: one, are visual aspects, resemblances, actually seen, or are they only thought of in an interpretation? Two, how or in what sense is it possible to experience an aspect, a thought, the meaning of a picture in an instant? In an instant. I shall try to unravel the discussion, especially in the relevant sections in the 1949 typescript on philosophy of psychology, by expounding those two discussions in turn. Maybe that's an excellent stopping point. I would like to make it a bit short. What do you say, Kalle?
Yes, intern.
What do you want to continue?
Okay, let's stop there. Intern.
Huh?
Page 357. 357.
$1930.
357 is the page. 357.
357. So this brings in an incredible, interesting view. We look at page 355 and look out here. This is looking into affordances as well. At the end of the first paragraph, we have to go to the first paragraph on the page. and the end of the first paragraph. Yeah, that's pretty good. To the extent to which to see is a verb of epistemic success, every seeing involves identification of kinds of objects or appearances, which means seeing them as similar to others of that kind. There's actually two things here. We have this idea, when seeing, we all see the same thing or only one thing. We know from neurology that seeing is a part of extensive learning. There is no seeing with the eyes, and seeing is not really connected to the eyes. As Gibson said, 99.99% of seeing has to do with the development of knowledge, which gives different seeings. Also pointed by Terry Marks-Starlow, fractality makes the seeing with the eyes to be an absurdity. It is way more complex. A person that doesn't have eyesight and gains it by methods of technology at even the age at 7 and 8 will never gain normal sight. They have lost the learning experience. So it is not open the eyes and see. Is incredibly complex. Maybe one of the most complex things next to hearing and sensing and feeling, if you get my drift. In a communal society, we trick each other and we also forget what's going on before. But we trick each other to think that it's just one thing, or an enormity of things. And listen now, it is true that Wittgenstein mentions the inappropriateness of saying, now I see it as, in cases of ordinary perception. So the duck rabbit or the puzzle is used as sort of a trick. It is not an exception. There is no dichotomy, as Kalle pointed out in the penultimate lecture, I think it was, between puzzles and ordinary things. It's trying to point to a specific aspect, or specific, I wouldn't use a specific, what should I say, dimension of seeing, which is not necessary to mention to understand, or not necessary to mention to ordinary people, but in this case, it needs a specific mentioning, and therefore the introduction of ambiguity as a special thing. But there is nothing special about it. It's absolutely normal. In the twist, going from the duck to the rabbit, or the old woman to the young woman, there is a sense of something has changed, but nothing really changed. Nothing changes in normal, if you want to say, normal reality. If we go to the next page of Severin Schroeder, and I like this one. It's just one line, and you could call it the fourth paragraph, but it's just one line beginning with a phenomenon. I think it's a key. The phenomenon we are talking about is the lighting up of an aspect. So the clue, the use that Wittgenstein makes is that something can be felt as lightening up, as in the duck rabbit, in other cases as well. And that would give you a sort of hint, a very light hint, what is this about? And what is the hint? That all of reality is like this. That it is lightning like. And then you will understand that there is no difference between a figure that can be obviously ambiguous, or, for instance, a stone or a vase or a, why not, blackboard pen. Or a death dial, if you like. So he uses this certain perceived possible change, the lightening up, to point to something extraordinary important, but will be missed. And please do not exaggerate it either. Do not make any false dichotomies or too large ones. At the end of the quote, further down from LPP, Geach asks, couldn't I say at any time how I see it, not just when it changes? When it changes. Wittgenstein, only if you are concentrating on it. And I think concentrating here, in my point of view, is an exaggerated way of viewing it. Concentrating, exaggerating within yourself. So Wittgenstein is making a very subtle point, not as coarse as to say that all of reality is ambiguous. It has always been, and we have always known it. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a reality at all. We can't have a reality if it's too stable. If it's stable, stable doesn't even mean anything. It's nonsensical to speak of stability. What would it mean? A sort of Platonic hell? I don't know. Well, even that is wrong, because it doesn't mean anything at all. And you can get another hint here, and do remember these hints are exceedingly light. We go to page 357. Aspect perception is concept-laden. Seeing something as an X presupposes mastery of the concept of an X. For example, to see a row of 6 equidistant dots as 2 groups of 3 dots requires familiarity with the concept of a group of things belonging together. It takes knowledge. We can't be aware of that knowledge. So it's an artificial claim by Wittgenstein in order to be didactical, to show to this certain thing. The subtlety is important here. And these visual aspects are, of course, also family resemblances. The family resemblances is what we actually see. Nothing else and nothing less. Callum, you are more than welcome to join.
Thank you. 355. 355, that is this page. So this last phrase here on 355, we
Oh, very
view a
good.
portrait
Hold the microphone.
as a human
That's much
being.
better that way. Hold the microphone. Fantastic.
We view a portrait as a human being. This phrase does not seem to make sense, and we have it repeated here on the next page. We view a portrait as a human being. Because why would we say that? We don't say,
No,
this is a human
exactly.
being, it's not a beast, it is not an animal. We wouldn't say that, because only if we want to be ironical, this is not a dog. But is, as Severin Schroeder points out, with his funny comment about the knife and fork, but simply see it as the drawing of a duck's head, the seeing as locution would make as little sense for me as to say at the sight of a knife and fork. Now I see this as a knife and fork.
Yeah.
And you mentioned this inappropriateness. So what is, we could ask, what is Wittgenstein's point then? Since he's actually breaking his own rule or his own point. It's only in exceptional cases, perhaps. Only when it changes, when my seeing changes. Let's say that I have in front of me an ambiguous portrait. Let's say a portrait that shows both a human being and say a ape. And I thought that was an ape, but soon I see no, it was actually a human being. Then we can say perhaps that it was a human being. Then it's a change. We can use this phrase. We view a portrait. And this is very close to Heidegger's point about the authenticity. That is, only where eyeglasses break down, there's a change.
Oh yeah. That's quite a point. Yeah.
So that is a positive thing for Heidegger, because it makes you leave. It makes you wake up from your everyday dullness.
Oh yeah.
And actually, this an ambiguous portrait. Let's say you're solving, let's say, a human and an ape. Actually, I could actually show one such portrait. I think it's funny. I showed it in the past, but let me see.
Yeah, I remember the Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson. Yeah.
This is not very obvious, and nobody would see this, but it's a little bit in that direction that it could be, is Travolta here voices an ape like a Travolta or vice versa. So here you could actually say, no, I see Travolta, but no, it's an ape. Now I see the same.
Yeah.
So then
Banana
when
Banksy.
this things. Yes, it's Banksy. Yes, indeed. So and then let me say something else on 356. This work were dispositional. So what does he mean with this? It's about disposition. That is your mood, you could say in Heidegger's term, Stimmung. I suppose that's what is meant here. Dispositional is your mood, Stimmung. Is that perhaps you have been a little bit dull, or you are being almost, you are living the everyday life. You always say in Dali, no, it's only a Travolta, but no, it's a exact picture of an ape dressed like Travolta or something like that.
Yeah. Your disposition, your mood, your Stimmung.
Mm.
Yeah. Your knowledge as well, or what happened before, your ladenness.
Mm. And one last thing on the next page, 357. And this is about mastering a happy face. So you could ask, how can you master? Don't you recognize happy face when you see it? No, as the remarks Stallov has shown that happiness, a happy face is not universal. Face expressions are not universal. Some cultures, they are different.
I didn't know that.
She speaks about that. But we have that also in The Emperor of the Sign by, what is his name again? The Emperor of the Sign.
Roland Barthes.
Thank you, Bart,
Roland
of
Barthes.
course. That Japanese doesn't show their faces are, expressions are different in some cases.
Yeah, a broad smile in Japan is threatening.
Yes, indeed. So it's actually, you need to learn what a happy face looks like. In a Westerner, of course, happy faces. So it's a learning process. So this is
actually, I didn't even know it was correct. It would still work as an example for make me understand, but it adds another dimension that it's correct also. Wow, thanks for that.
Yeah, perhaps. So we have been speaking much about ambiguity of a duck and rabbit, and today we had also the fork and knife. But perhaps this is best
Yeah, the fork and knife.
as a variation.
You can give many examples. That could be dark, and you go to the table and then say, "Oh, I see there's a fork and knife there." You just saw shadows before, but then all of a sudden you see the shadows as what they are.
Yes, and if I remember correctly, fork and knife, they're also relatively late inventions in human history.
They are, and a person, a pygmy from Africa or an inhabitant from the Amazonas wouldn't see the fork and knife. He wouldn't see them at all. Wouldn't recognize them. I think I mentioned that a pygmy, as a very small person, for those who don't know, was taken out of the rainforest. And on the savannah, he asked one of the tall people coming from the outside, "What are those ants over there?" And he was pointing to elephants. So they didn't know things got smaller at a distance. In the very dense rainforest of the Congo, there are no distances. Everything is overly overgrown. And if you haven't learned it when you're young, you will never learn it. And it takes, oof. Somebody said, somebody who's been seeing for 10,000 hours do not see the same thing as one who's seen for 15,000 hours, 20,000 hours. And some people are just more advanced, and different cultures see much more complex things. And it's widely interesting.
Absolutely. And as far as I understand, so both Wittgenstein and Hariki would agree with each other. I don't know if, because they both focus on that change, sudden change. Both Wittgenstein and Hariki would focus on that sudden change.
Yeah, when things comes alive to show hidden aspects of them.
It would be
That you
interesting
become
to
more
know in
authentic.
what way in what way the two philosophers would disagree, that's still a mystery to me, but I don't know. But perhaps also it's so important that they would agree to 100%.
That would be tragic. That would be tragic. Pure tragedy.
No, I could imagine that Heidegger says that this is Travolta imitating an ape. Wittgenstein would say, no, this is an ape imitating Travolta.
Yeah. Ah, it's a beautiful picture. Maybe we should end there, what do you say?
Yes, let's end there.
Thank you very much for attending, everyone. Have a very nice morning, day, or evening. Bye-bye for now.